Greetings, you have reached the EA View. This is your host, Kristin Fontana, and I'm here with my team, my Evolutionary Astrology team, and we're here to discuss the Archetype of Sagittarius for the month of December. And we have Rav Chahal back with us. She was with us last month. Welcome back, Rav.
Hi.
Rav Chahal from London, England, and she's a new grad doing stellar things with this work, this sacred work that we all are so honored to be able to share with you today. And Stacie Pazura, welcome back, girl.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here.
And Deva Green, welcome, girl.
Hello.
All
Great
right.
to be back.
All right, wonderful to be with all of you. And we'll be missing Rose this month, but she will be with us again in January. So we are again discussing the archetype of Sagittarius, as I mentioned, and we will just share everything we love about this archetype. We all have Sagittarius somewhere in our chart. Even if you're not a Sagittarius, you have a 9th house, you have Jupiter somewhere, you might have planets in Sagittarius. So you'll be able to really resonate with some of what we're sharing today. We do have a signature transit of the month as always. And today, as we record this webinar, total solar eclipse in Sagittarius. So we're gonna let you know what that's about. We have our movie of the month and a special fingerprint of the month. Billie Eilish is our chosen one. What a perfect example of a Sagittarius in living, breathing color. Wow, she does not nip or tuck anything. She just lets it rip and I'll roll. And I love everything about her, just honesty. So we'll be talking about some EA foundational principles within that chart. And of course, we will close with an inspirational message for you today. So welcome back. Oh, goodness.
Okay, so we want to take the opportunity to wish a happy birthday to Kristin and Deva. Both of you just contribute so much to the show, so much wisdom and so much, you both have just such a very loving energy, very objective energy. And we want to wish the best to you, both of you, in this next trip around the sun. How has it been for you?
I'll let Deva start because her birthday was yesterday.
Oh. It's been very Sagittarius through and through. I always try to adopt the attitude that even though the more birthdays you have, you start wishing you could go younger, that with each year is the opportunity to gain more wisdom, the eternal student. So keep on trucking.
Right. Yeah, and mine just started really, but it's been wonderful so far. I just every year I'm just really reminded of the power of being natural and being who you are. And I think every year on my birthday, I think a lot about that. What have I done in the past year that has expressed more of my natural strides or the natural way in the world? And so I just want to celebrate just this in the spirit of being natural, in the spirit of Sagittarius. I want to celebrate this energy right now that will hopefully encourage all of us to be who we came here to be. So that's how my morning started, just thinking a lot about that. And there's always more to go. There's always more to unravel. And so that's my hope for the next year, is to continue to express more of what naturally makes me who I am, so I can encourage all of you to do the same.
Awesome.
Okay, wow. So when we were preparing for this webinar, I said, oh, we got to talk about Avatar. I mean, I just watched this movie again, and Stacie found this incredible slide. And I don't know, like anybody who's a Damon soul, like Stacie and I, for sure. I'm sure Deva as well. Deva is Deva's spirit, right? After all. But anyway, it's just a wonderful movie. So I want you to talk a little bit about the Damon archetype linked to this Sagittarius sign.
Sure. So Sagittarius is the root archetype for the Damon soul, and the definition of a Damon soul is the fusion of human consciousness with nature, and particularly plants and animals. So one of the big trademarks of a daemon soul is a soul who really finds it, their communion with animals is, sometimes they can commune better with animals or relate better with animals and plants than they can with human beings. Someone who's just really tuned into natural law and defined by natural laws. Yeah, so that's basically what a daemon soul is. Someone who's working to help the collective consciousness on the planet so that we remember this precious gift that we have, nature, and that it's our home and how to work with it. And, you know, I would say that these times are particularly difficult for daemon souls because the world is challenging a lot of natural ways of living that are just, that you know in your heart. And really the movie Avatar was the essence of that, because here you had a humanoid society that evolved through harmonizing with nature and knowing the animal and plant life and working with it. And, you know, so what an amazing society they created. You know, it's obviously fantasy, but at the same time, it's not. It's something that, you know, we, you know, need to strive for here with the consciousness that we have. So I love that movie.
In the end, the love wins. In the end, the forces of nature do ultimately prevail. So just recently, and this kind of reminds me very much of the movie Avatar, though. I was watching a show on nature on the PBS channel, and it was incredible how even with the whole predator-prey dynamic in nature, I mean, we actually need predators to keep everything in balance, right? And they were removing certain predators from certain environments, whether it was the ocean or the land, and the whole structure of nature fell apart. It fractured, it fell apart. And even within the sea, when they took away the starfish from a certain area, the mussels overtook the whole area and completely destroyed everything else that was there. So by taking away one thing in nature, it absolutely created this collapse of everything else. And so, you know, really a very powerful series on nature on the PBS channel and Nova and the Nova channel. And one of the things that they said at the end is when you give nature a chance, it will recover. So when you allow, even when lands have been burned, so much has been burned, so many fires in Australia, massive fires, of course in the US, massive fires, in Greece, massive fires, I mean, everywhere. And yet it's amazing how over time, you know, nature will recover. When you allow when you bring certain species back to the land, even when they remove the wolves in Yosemite, Stacie, you probably know a lot about that. Everything that fell apart without the wolves, as they called a predator in that environment, you know, everything from the trees and just nature itself. I don't really know in particular what died of them not being there. You may know more about this, Stacie, but by bringing the wolves back, what was it there?
Well, it was without the wolves, the deer and the grazers were just sort of depleting the environment. And so then once the wolves came, it started changing the grazers' behaviors, and they would avoid the open fields and just, anyway, it ended up changing the way that a river would flow. It ended up improving the soil, and then just a healthier ecosystem of different species just through the introduction of wolves.
That's exactly it. Overgrazing is a problem. They wouldn't, when there's fear reintroduced into a landscape, they keep moving, right? They don't overgraze in an area, then everything dies, and then there's not enough food for the animals that need to graze. So it's that whole idea that it's not an idea, it's a truth that everything has a place in nature, and everything makes everything else work. And with Avatar, as we were talking about too, you know, even in the context of the blue people within their own culture, within their own community, they did have the predators that existed within their own. Anyway, just a wonderful reminder of what can happen when we allow ourselves, our own natures, to be expressed, when you transfer that to the human condition. And I love this image about the Sagittarian archetype. All right, Rob, we want to hear from you. What do you have to say about all this?
Well, just to reiterate what you just said, in terms of it feeling natural, it tends to be something where, you know, deep within, it's a natural sense of knowing that you're following your authentic nature. And the best way we see it is through animals. You know, I had dogs growing up, in just the way of them just being selfless, in terms of the attention they wanted from you wasn't because they wanted to feel good for themselves. It was more to, I'm here for you, rather than the other way around. And I find that with animals, it's just about giving. There's nothing about wanting something back. And that's the whole thing to do with the Daemon archetype, is that natural sense connected to earth and knowing everything is one ultimately.
Absolutely. Deva?
Right, exactly. It's that part in us that tunes into via the connection to Pisces as well, that the totality of creation in a way, and knowing that we are a part of that, and via the intuition, it's that part in all of us that just knows what it knows without knowing necessarily how it knows it relative to that connection. And the image that came to me from the avatar was when they're all connecting to this, what I call the central heart, or this beautiful tree, and they're all individually connected to the mother tree. And via that connection, it's almost like we can all tune into what naturally exists. And to me, for me, that's one of the central aspects of the daemon, or the ninth house archetype, is that it's not a mental construction, or it's not a matter of belief or so on. The truth simply exists. And it's a matter of opening ourselves up to it in such a way that we allow it to be expressed, or that we allow what's in our inner nature to come through in exactly. It can, for myself, I know I've had a much easier time connecting to my pets and out in nature, because of a fear of being misunderstood, or a fear of misinterpretation. And that's also, to me, a central part of it too, is rooting or grounding in it in such a way that you become a messenger of whatever that truth is, regardless of any misinterpretation. So that's been my Jupiter growth function for a long time now. And what I'm rooting into in terms of the ninth house is allowing that to be expressed as my root, or allowing that to be expressed as what comes out into the world. And within that is interpretation, as you guys were talking about the wolves and so on, that for me, you can look at those things with two different lenses. And one is to say, oh my gosh, these are predators and so on and so forth. And the other is to frame it, or to intuitively interpret that in the ways that you were describing, in terms of everything has a natural role, a natural function. Look at what happens if you eliminate collapse. And so from my understanding too, being natural in the ninth house is also seeing things from an unfiltered, or from a natural perspective, in terms of what we may have learned from external sources that are contrary to that, or that are more based upon man-made belief.
Yeah. What happens too when that when our natures are suppressed and repressed, if you do have Jupiter in a stressful position, I mean, I think about someone right now that I know who has Jupiter in the 8th house squaring the nodes, which house of the soul is 8th house, and Jupiter is about your essence, your nature, your truth. And this soul loves horses, loves to ride, and that south node is in the 11th house. And because of a suppression of her nature in recent lives, and a lot of trauma linked with that, she had and still has terrible asthma. And when things are unresolved in the soul and there's a trauma linked with what's unresolved or repressed, it can come out through the breath, through the lungs. People that have asthma, it's usually a result of some kind of emotional trauma from this life or a past life. And so she, continues to be with the horses. But I mean, it's kind of come in fits and starts. And one thing that happened is that, when she got pulled away into things that, in my opinion, were not natural for her, and then re-entered a space with horses, the allergies were incredibly intense because there was a time spent where she wasn't honoring who she naturally was. She was not making it a priority. And so it's like, the body doesn't lie. And it will tell you when you're not in alignment with your nature. And so that's an important teaching with this archetype. We know when we're not in the groove. We know when we're not being honest or authentic. We can feel it in our body. We can feel our muscles tighten in places. We can hear it in our voices. And so the body will speak to you very clearly about whether you are being natural. And when you are being more natural, there's a freedom that exists. There are spaces that open within you and around you, and you become magnetic for others because they want to also be in a space where that energy is free and where they can feel uninhibited. Everybody wants to feel uninhibited and safe to be who they are in the world. And I feel if you can do that, you will be encouraging those around you to do the same. Your relationships will prosper, your work will prosper, everything will benefit.
Right. And I remember what you were sharing too, Kristin, that often it can take situations where living that lie can almost kill you, or you literally can't live the lie anymore. Mm-hmm. And then the Jupiter aspect of it, you start returning to your nature, you start recovering it and living it no matter what. And so much gets returned to you. And that's really that Jupiter teaching is the gain through loss. You have to be willing, you have to be willing to let certain things go in order for that growth to happen. It doesn't just happen through the snap of a finger or just suddenly opportunities. It's very Scorpio for me. It's very Scorpio Sag. You empty the plate, or you let that into your life no matter I guess no matter how much you have to let go of, or I'm kind of struggling for the words, but you're willing to let go of that dishonesty, or you're willing to let go of those places that are inauthentic, and then the abundance and everything gets returned to you.
Yeah, the word I think of is pretense. You're letting go of the pretense.
Yes.
It's something that's not you at all. And I love how you said that. I don't think I've ever heard it said that way. The gain through the loss. But what it really is the gain through the apparent loss. It's nothing is actually lost and nothing is sacrificed. But through the square to Pisces, you feel like there might be something you have to sacrifice. But it's once you receive what is waiting for you all along, you will know it wasn't a sacrifice at all. You've been given so much more. So that is an incredible teaching through this mutable access. All right. Moving along here. So the signature transit of the month is today. Well, it's actually close to midnight in the West, but from many parts of the world, it was December 4th, Saturday, with the day we are recording this webinar, is total solar eclipse in Sagittarius. And we want to talk to you about what this means. And if you're listening to this webinar a week from when we recorded it, don't worry, you didn't miss anything. You probably already know what the eclipse is about for you. And it is really reflecting what will be unfolding in your life for the next 6 months. And so given that Deva and I were born one day apart and we're celebrating this solar return today, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. I hope it's okay. What I want to share, I want all of you maybe to tell me what this eclipse you think is about for you, but I'm going to tell a secret if Deva won't, throw throw tomatoes at me for it. But Deva's been working on a book on the moon, and yahoo, Deva, go Deva. And just to remind you all, because I was helping her with it, doing some editing a while ago, she kind of put it to the side, and there's a resurgence of it. I'm so happy. We all want to know about the moon, okay? Because we all have a moon somewhere, and the moon governs your emotional body. And it is a reflection of how you feel on a moment-to-moment basis. And as souls having a human experience, it just is hard when the emotions are being challenged in some way, right? We all want to know how to overcome those challenging evolutionary hairpin turns. We all want to know that. And the moon is part of the water trinity, right? So Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, we evolve through the emotional body, through the moon. And Deva has taken on this challenge of writing about the moon from an evolutionary point of view and the nodes, and looking at it from different stages of evolution, using chart examples. It's just going to be awesome. And she was just given the green light. A big publisher is going to be publishing that book, Wessex. And her goal is to have that out in March. So this is, okay, so everyone hears about eclipses and they're like, oh my God, eclipse, what's this going to happen? You know, it can be a scary word for some people, but it's not always ominous. It can be absolutely propelling. It can be like a catalyst, and it definitely was the fire for Deva. I think yesterday on her birthday she got that news, and so we all want to hear about the moon, Deva. Let's go. Whoop, whoop.
That is so
happy
exciting.
birthday.
Congratulations, Deva. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, I write weekly forecasts, and Rose and I do monthly forecasts, but I want to hear from Stacie and Rob about this eclipse. Okay, so Stacie, has anything happened to you so far during the past 2 weeks eclipse? You had a birthday November 21st. You've got some Sag planets going on in your own chart. So tell me what this is about for you, or how might someone in the world expect to experience this for them?
You know, well, for me, it's really just a focus on growth, really. I haven't worked for probably well, I should say it a different way. I've taken the last 4 winters off. You know, I'm a gardener by trade. And this year earlier, I broke my leg. And so I had to find another job just to kind of supplement funds. And I ended up finding something that allows me to interface with the public. And it's just a really fast-paced job. It's just creating a balance for me, because as a gardener, you know, working alone all the time, you know, it's nice to have something else that brings you outside. And so just growth, and just the fast pace of it and learning to integrate it for me. So I'm right in the middle of it. So ask me in a month or so how I'm doing.
Yeah, well, for myself, I would say the eclipse, well, it goes through my 3rd house. And for me, it's been about finding my voice and being able to, though it's in the hidden part, most of my planets are in the 12th house, which is like the outer side of the chart. So it's having the faith and trusting my intuition when it comes to moving forward. And it's like building those new foundations. And the key word for me is actually trust. Trust that the paths are going to open up rather than having to continuously plan. That's when the Virgo side kicks in, where it just wants to know where it's going, one step at a time. But with the eclipse, it's more about the intuition side and kind of just having the faith and trust that the doors are opening, and knowing that if you have to kind of close certain doors, and I put this in one of my posts, you have to let it eclipse out of your life, because you can't hold on to the past. If you're wanting to move forward, you have to close one door to move forward. And just knowing that you may not see results straight away, because I believe solar eclipses especially, can pave way for the next 2 years, unlock the cycle of the next 2 years. And just knowing that life is an adventure, that whole Sagittarius, freedom, exploring, and having fun, to be honest.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot a little because we had so much fun with you last month. We invited you back, and obviously, we were going to have you back anyway, but we knew that Rose wouldn't be with us, and so it's like this is kind of an eclipse moment where in Sagittarius you're being put in the director's chair today, and so it's like passing the baton and being ready for it, because you didn't expect that. Kind of came out of left field, and what an exciting opportunity. And what I will say for eclipses is that things they happen when you least expect, oftentimes because either a soul is either off track or they've been doing a lot of things that have been in alignment with their nature, and it's just a validation to propel them forward. So if it's hard, it's because the soul might be off track or going in the wrong direction. And if it's really supportive, then you've been, really on track in many respects. Sometimes we don't know why initially something's happening. If it's something rattling or life-changing, why is this happening? But eventually we will, of course, know the why to it.
Well, we talk about the Sagittarius archetype. Well, the ruler, Jupiter's in Aquarius at the moment, if I'm correct, yeah, and that's actually moving through my sixth house. It's either about to go into my sixth house, or it's in my sixth house, from what I can remember. So it's linking to my work, my area, the area that I define as my work. And with some people that I know in my life, they're like, oh, so what are you doing work-wise? Because I also I do a side job as well, where to bring in the money and the funds, etc. And they're like, so what are you? And it's only recently I've started to say I'm an astrologer, and the look is, and I just look at them straight and say, yes, I'm an astrologer. Either you get interesting questions, or either you just get somebody that doesn't know what to ask next, which is fine. Yeah, so the eclipse is literally telling me to maybe eclipse my old way of approaching and speaking about what I do, and following my own truth, literally. Yeah.
Well, sometimes, if you've had a lot of a past where there's been a lot of trauma or persecution, that's going to take a lot of courage to utter those words, wondering if someone's going to judge you for it. And undoubtedly, that we talked about your chart last month a bit. So, these are big steps to someone else. It's like, no big deal. You should be proud of that, but not if you've lost your life over such things in the past. There's going to be some trepidation. So huge steps for you. I applaud you for that. Many years ago, we talked about the transit going on, right? Pluto transiting Pluto through your fourth house, have finally left the fourth house.
Right. And it's almost like a way of telling them in the world, and this might sound a little Leo on my part, you know what? I don't care about your judgment. Well, smile right back. It means nothing to me. I'm an astrologer.
And that's happened when Pluto's gone into my fifth house, conjuncting my natal moon, actually. It has. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's good. And talk about freeing. It's so liberating to not care, isn't it?
It is. It really is. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right. So before we move to our fingerprint of the month, I want everybody to think about, on this day, this is a Sagittarius day. It's all about your truth out there. Like, really, I want everybody to think about, what is the most honest expression of me, vision of myself I can imagine or muster. What does it look like to really allow yourself the freedom to envision what that looks like, and to just be that within your own imagination, within your own energy field. And you will just by virtue of doing that, you will light a fire inside of yourself and want to take steps that lead you there. Mars is in Scorpio right now. Look at that. It's sextiling Pluto. What an amazing aspect. It's sextiling Venus, which is your inner relationship to yourself, what you value, what you want to sustain, how you want to structure your life. What are your priorities moving forward? What is it that you want to heal within your soul with Pluto and Venus balsamic? Venus will be moving retrograde and crossing back and forth over this Pluto all the way retrograde till the end of January, will not leave the sign of Capricorn until early March. And so you have a little time to work with this vision that's coming to you now, and it will probably feel to be darting in from some other universe. So just let it. With Stacie, this is your big eclipse was really, or maybe your big life change is just about becoming great, creating more structure in your life. So you had a stronger foundation to really spring from and to do more of what you want to do. And so, that big change is looking more like creating stability. And so it's not always going to be the same thing for everybody.
Right.
And so just wanted to encourage everybody to do that. Saturn is in Aquarius. It is squaring Uranus. So of course the future is going to look nothing like the past. And thank God you're saying, well, thank God. Let's make it look different. Let's be the director of the play, of the journey that you want to see unfold. You are in charge of in large part of how this plays out. Yes, fate and karma and all those things, they're major components, but our choices are everything. And that starts with what you think about, what you envision. And it also has a lot to do with how you give of yourself to this world naturally, sharing, giving, and including, the Sagittarius way. Okay, let's talk about our signature. Woohoo, Billie Eilish.
Right, Billie Eilish. To be honest, my first thought was, where do I start? She may only be 19 and she's going to be 20 in a couple of weeks, but she has lived a life. I was like, wow. So if many people aren't aware, and I'll be surprised if you're not, but I personally wasn't that aware of her, but I am now. She's 19 years old. She's an American singer-songwriter. Both her parents are actors, but they're also musicians as well. She was actually born through IVF, which I found interesting because she's got her natal moon in Aquarius in the 11th house. She was homeschooled by her mother, as was her brother, because her parents actually decided when they were young that they wanted to spend more time with them. So they decided that homeschooling was the right option. So they would have time and allow their children to explore their own interests without being conditioned in a particular way, as the schooling system does for all of us. And the whole Eilish family actually are involved with music in some way. And they actually helped her from a young age explore writing songs, making music. She actually learned to play an instrument called ukulele. I can't even pronounce it. Yeah.
Ukulele.
Yeah, at the age of 6, which I was like, wow, that's amazing. And she reportedly wrote her first song at the age of 11, and it was for her mother's music class, which amazing. And she first was became in the public eye around 2015. It was when her debut single called Ocean Eyes, interesting for a Sagittarius soul, released. And it was a song that her brother had written for his own band. And what had happened was he'd heard her sing it and was straight away like, this song is more powerful with her vocals rather than his band singing it. Hence it was released. And that's how she came into the public eye. And to date, she's received over 160 award nominations, and she's won around 64, and it includes 7 Grammy Awards and 2 Brit Music Awards. And they're the 2 biggest musical awards an artist can receive. And she's been nominated for another 7 Grammys for the 2022 awards. So she could be breaking more World Guinness Book records, because she's already broken the records, because I believe she is the first female artist to win the big 4 categories in history.
Wow.
Yeah, and she's also ranked 10th most streamed artist in the world on Spotify. She's only been around for 6 years. That just tells you where the path could be leading. And to date, she's released a documentary. She's got a book, an Amazon special movie with Disney, which is called A Love Letter to LA. She's launching her own fragrance, I believe. And she's even hosted at the Met Gala, which not many people get invited to the Met Gala, but she got invited at the age of 19. And on Instagram, she has 97 million followers. That's, but I believe she's the youngest one to have the most number of followers, and she's an influencer. I found out that Oscar de la Renta had asked her to wear his gown to the Met Gala, and her response to him was, I will wear an outfit to the Met Gala, but you have to stop using fur.
Oh my goodness.
Nice.
Yes. And Oscar de la Renta turned around and said, yes. So she wore his outfit to the gala, and Oscar de la Renta will no longer be using fur in any of his clothing, which
Fantastic.
is, yeah, there's your Sagittarius Damien soul following her natural fingerprint. It's the fact that she has specified she wants more brands to be environmentally conscious, and she wants people to look after the earth. And I believe it was just announced a couple of days ago that she's made a vinyl through using recycled vinyl. And I believe Gucci's the brand that's linked with her with this. So she's trying to get those big brands that a lot of people are aware of, especially in terms of, because they're expensive. They're not, they're not just everyday labels. And if somebody on that caliber, designers are taking the initiative to be more environmentally conscious, and because they know she is influencing a huge number of people right now, and at the age of 19, it's like, and it's she's probably had her nodal return in terms of, so it's like she's literally come into this world going, right, let's go, let's do the work. But that's where Pluto in the 9th house, Sagittarius soul, was always going to start off with. And Stacie, if you want to just explore that archetype.
Yeah, sure.
Before you jump in, Stacie, I just wanted to say that right before the show, I was thinking how much she reminded me of Gaga. It just in terms of her, just her visual appearance, just wanting to kind of create a changing image and the shock value with it. But they both have Pluto conjunct the South Node. This is a wide conjunction, actually. Maybe it's a little not quite there, but close. But she does have Sun on the South Node. So I found that's a rare aspect, really. So.
Well, just recently, she does an interview every year with Vanity Fair. So she's been doing it since 2017. It's the same questions, which she gets to listen to, and then respond to the answers that she's given previously. And there was a couple in the first couple of 2 or 3 years where this year she went, I was lying, I was trying to fit in. But in terms of the interviews, but with her songs are where her authentic nature has been expressed, in terms of not shying away. It's like what you said earlier, being brutally honest with how she was feeling. But yeah.
Okay. All right, Stacie, you go.
Okay. So I'm just kind of going to highlight the opposition between Pluto and Saturn retrograde in the 3rd. So obviously with Pluto in Sagittarius, there's that core desire to expand one's awareness of the universe and to really deepen it, and to find new horizons in what things mean and what natural laws are about, and how to live that way. And obviously to evolve, one needs to get to a point of realizing that what is true for oneself and one's philosophy, one's reality, it is all relative. And so one of the tasks of that polarity point is to one's intuitions and growing perceptions into words, into a language that most people can understand, which kind of connects to like the phenomena of just universality, which is natural law. It's a universal principle that it doesn't matter what, where in time you're looking at it or what culture. There are just human natural laws. And so with the Saturn retrograde on that polarity point, Pluto's polarity point, it shows that there have been prior life efforts made to create a structure in order to get that process going, and in terms of communicating her ideas in language that others can understand. And it also speaks to the evolutionary development of the brain, because when you have a 9th house, 3rd house, you know, Gemini Sag axis, you're looking at balancing and integrating the left and right hemispheres of the brain. And so Pluto in Sag is, you know, obviously a lot of lifetimes with a predominant focus in the right brain. And so now here she is in this life, and she absolutely has that right brain. I don't know how many people know this, but she has a neurological condition called, what is it? I wrote it down because I knew I'd mispronounce it. Synesthesia. Synesthesia, which is information. It will hit all of your various sensory points. And so, for example, every song that she writes or every idea that she has, there's a color of it, there's a shape of it, there's a texture to it, sometimes there's a temperature. And it's very interesting because, you know, this Saturn retrograde in the 3rd is in Gemini. It's you know, it's I lost my train of thought. I can't remember what I was going to say. It was just, see, and this is kind of the Sagittarian right brain happening right before our eyes right now. But anyhow, so the homeschooling that Rav mentioned earlier has been a very important circumstance, 3rd house circumstance, for her to evolve in this way, because with homeschooling, her mother really approached it in a way where, you know, she understood that the best way to learn is to have, you know, the child learn what they're interested in when they're interested in it. And one of the rules that they grew up in their household is that they can stay up as late as they want, as long as they are doing something creative, as long as they are learning things that they are drawn to authentically. And so, and obviously, I mean, I think all of this just kind of shows it's a real contributor to her success at such a young age. You know, the ability to really think of things and then to like see colors, and, you know, there's this whole different sensory thing. And so even though she works with her brother in producing and writing a lot of the songs, when they record, you know, it'll always be where she has the feeling, where she takes all of those sensory experiences that she's having, and then she'll know when it's right. She'll know what it is exactly that she wants to express. And so, yeah, so this is a pretty fine example of somebody just really focusing that evolutionary energy on creating structure and actualizing one's potential and breaking world records and all of that kind of, and also challenging the status quo, which is inherent to Saturn retrograde. So, and we all know that she's that kind of artist. She's been called anti-pop, which is kind of a refreshing thing, because she talks about real things that not everyone is talking about.
Talks about hard things, devastating,
Yeah.
Suicide, depression, and
yeah.
The recent cover of her latest album called Happier Than Ever, she's crying on the front. She's all made up and there's tears coming down her face, and it's called Happier Than Ever. So obviously she's not so happy. But yeah, I had read she struggles a lot with depression herself with that Pluto-Saturn opposition, Stace. And I see that even though she doesn't have Mercury retrograde, she does have Mercury in Capricorn, which can be like the tendency to brood a bit.
Yeah.
But she does have the ruler for Capricorn retrograde in the 3rd in Gemini. So it definitely plays out. I mean, it was so perfect to have parents like that who recognized that they needed to be homeschooled, that they would just...
Yeah, and a brother. I mean, they work together. They write their music in his bedroom. You know, what stronger symbol than that Saturn retrograde in the 3rd house?
Trining, mooning in Aquarius in the 11th. My brother is my best friend is what that means.
Yeah.
Well, just another signature that links to that is actually the Jupiter retrograde in Cancer in the 4th house is opposing Mercury in Capricorn in the 10th house. And we know that a retrograde energy can actually influence another planet as well. It can have that retrograde influence. So
Yeah.
in a way, she kind of will feel like she has a Mercury retrograde, and that's
Yes,
what we will most
exactly.
likely sense. Yeah.
Well, what is that called again? There's a word for that.
It's called periphery.
Oblique.
Oblique
oblique.
retrograde.
Yes,
That's it.
oblique.
We haven't talked about that in so long. Thank you, Rob. That is so important.
Yeah.
Anytime a retrograde planet is aspecting another, especially through an opposition like this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well done.
But then also the Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, it rules her Sagittarius planets as well as her Pluto, but her 10th house, which is the house of career.
Right.
So in a way, because the retrograde archetype, we know you end up repeating, redoing, and reliving dynamics linked to your past. So it's like she's had to come into the world kind of going, I'm ready, I've done this before, I want to do it again, but I'm going to do it right now. It's like she doesn't want to waste time. There's your Sagittarius Sun 10th house linking to time. And she knows she's got a lot to do, probably a lot to change in terms of what Stacie said, in terms of status quo, you know, the patriarchal system, the way people operate. And she's like, no, I'll be the one to set the change, you know, especially for the younger, like I said, the younger audience, but the younger society, in terms of allowing people to embrace their own natural authenticity, in terms of, if this is who you want to be it. If it's even for a short amount of time. Hence her changing of her hairstyles, I think, reflected that. It was kind of like, now I'm feeling this color. Now she's gone blonde, and she actually, for me, I was like, wow, she's so pretty. She's so naturally very pretty. But I think it was hiding behind some of her previous looks, and she's becoming more confident in who she is. And that relates to her early upbringing, because we can only grow through the emotional body. And for her to be given that strong safety foundation as a child, be who you need to be, explore your interests, be confident in who you are, and trust that intuition. And getting that from such a young age has set that foundation for the rest of her life, which is that Jupiter retrograde in Cancer.
Well, we talk about Pluto on that South Node too, is, you know, there's different ways that this manifests for people, but it is absolutely a superpower in some cases, coming back to empower herself, like a Gaga. I mean, it can be literally like hitting it out of the park. And with the Pisces rising and Mars in Pisces, you know, that's, you know, a really an international fame with the ninth house, strong ninth house signature as well. So she started something she couldn't finish before, that's for sure. And so of course she wants to get out of the gates as soon as possible. I think the first time I saw her on the Grammys, was she 16 when she was it, Rob, do you know?
She was 15.
16, I think, yeah.
I mean, I was just blown away. And yeah.
She's an old soul. She's an old soul.
Completely.
We can completely see that. She's, you know, with her, because you look at her and think, how does she know all this? You know, we learn this maybe by the time we hit our Uranus opposition, you know, our midlife.
Exactly.
She's got it on her nodal return, like before her nodal return. And I was absolutely amazed. I was like, wow, like, what is she going to do next? That's what I'm looking forward to seeing in terms of breaking the mold.
Absolutely.
And that'll be an ongoing thing, because that is the retrograde archetype. You know, you're never quite satisfied. It's peeling and peeling and peeling.
It's so true. You're never finished. You always want more and more and more to recover, to learn, to express, to reach, to teach. Yeah, we're never done until we're done. That's how we're really done. All right, Deva, what's your signature?
Oh, I was gonna talk about the sun on the South Node and how it relates to a foundational principle of the three possible expressions when a planet conjuncts the South Node. And it connects to the essential EA principle, which is observation and correlation. That in terms of these three different expressions that a planet on the South Node can take, you don't just look at the birth chart and determine that. You can determine that from the person's life through talking with them, and of course through observation. So looking at the sun on the South Node, it can have three possible expressions, and The first, which is not common, is a total reliving. It means that essentially there's been a pretty much an absolute resistance to integrating or working through the dynamics that are linked with that planet on the south node. The second is which is also not common, is a total state of karmic fruition, which is where the soul has put so much effort in so much of a pure way to resolve and to work through the dynamics that are on the south node, that they're in a state of fruition, or of I believe what's been taught is reaping what one sows, or reaping the rewards of efforts that were put forward in the past. And the third possible expression is little column A, little column B. That there's some areas that have been resolved and some that are still being worked through relative to the south node. So they're in a simultaneous state of fruition and reliving. And from my estimations, I would say that possibly she's in the state of fruition, because of how early in her life she was able to shine, sun on the south node, and have areas of her creativity that, in my estimations, I mean, talking about these really quote unquote dark, or she just doesn't she doesn't hold anything back. Everything is very Jupiter Sag, full throttle, which is just absolutely the daemon soul. And but to have that be recognized, or to have that be something that was so acknowledged and allowed herself to empower herself at such an early age, to have that be accepted, is also sun on the south node, in terms of perhaps with the areas of maybe not of seeing the 10th house, of having that creativity either repressed. Looking at the Sag 10th, it makes me think of if this is a lifetime where she's really breaking the molds, or really breaking through a lot of creative energies that had been repressed, either due to fear to persecution, seeing that Mars and Pisces in the 12th, unresolved trauma. But it really feels like she's busting through her own repression relative to how she would be received by others, or how can my creativity then shine in the world, or how can I then self-empower, and essentially seeing that sun on the south node, that it was the power of letting that truth speak for itself, seeing the Mercury in Capricorn in the 10th, and whether I'm depressed, whether I'm feeling this way, I mean, even being able to take some of her darkest dreams that, from my estimations, were coming from past life trauma, absolutely, and turning them into these beautiful songs.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it just, wow, you know, it's really inspiring. And a quote I'd like to share that to me really illustrates this is, I go through a lot of depression, and I know other people do too, but I have an outlet that so many people do not have. If you have that inside of you and you can't get it out, what do you do? And looking at her chart, the Mercury Sun on the south node in the 10th house, and the Pluto Venus and Sag in the 9th, it's a natural outlet for those spaces to really shine to their maximum. Sun on the south node. So from my understanding, and that the places where she flip-flops are the places where she owned up to not being honest to herself, that's part of that resolution, and how that can potentially break into the full blooming, or the best possible expression of the sun on the south node.
Awesome. There's one of my favorite songs by her. It's called Everything I Wanted. And I'd never seen the video, and I didn't even know what the song meant, really. You know, when you hear songs and you're not really paying attention to the words, you just love the melody, or you love the music itself, is kind of like one of those. And one of the lines is, if they knew what they said, would it go straight to my head? talking about everything she wanted. And she's in this video and she's driving with who's supposedly her boyfriend, and they look completely depressed. And they drive literally over the sand in some LA beach, and they drive into the ocean like they're like a Thelma and Louise scene or something. And I'm like, oh my God, this thing's about suicide, and just like how, I mean, well, just nothing's ever enough, you know, and just all of the dark emotions that kind of go with being human, I suppose. But I mean, it's so much more than that. But you can see in her chart that there's been lives, you know, that she's taken her life before in various ways. There's definitely suicide themes in here. She's working it out in this lifetime. And for anyone who's taken their life in other times, and countless people have, because of not be feeling like such an alien here. Like, what's the point if I can't be who I am? I have to suppress everything, you know, it's just forget it, I'm out of here. And so, you know, I think the way that her soul works through all the emotion around that is through writing about it. And that's how she gets through those bad feelings. That's what she writes about, is being able to kind of put it on paper. I remember Anna Nalick wrote a beautiful song called Breathe, and she said something like, if I get it all down on paper, it's no longer threatening the life it belongs to. And, you know, this is my diary, and I'm screaming out loud, and you can use these words how you want to, is what Anna Nalick is singing. It's the same thing for a soul like this, who's allowing herself to write and express and to, you know, process everything within her emotionally, psychologically. And it does in a way leave us when we're journaling, right? Or if we're just turning up our favorite music and singing at the top of our lungs, you know, it allows for a release of such things. And so, yeah, I mean, there's no mistake, the content of what she writes. And there's a real strong Scorpio influence here in her chart with the Pluto-Venus conjunction. And I mean, that is, might as well have Venus and Scorpio with that, right? Same thing. And so it's a new cycle though, that phase. And while the sun and the South Node are culminating, the Pluto-Venus are new. So she's really empowering women in this world with who she is by, you know, be who you are, and the shock value that comes with it, with her Lilith and Scorpio in the 8th house, the shock value that is empowering women to just be who you are and let the chips fall where they may. Be a group of one if necessary. But, you know, you can look at this chart. This is such a classic example, you guys, because, you know, she literally has nothing in Scorpio. And when you look at her, that's what you feel in her. This is such a teaching for people who study astrology. And the only thing she has in the 8th house is her original Lilith. This is not resolution. This is original Lilith in Scorpio. I mean, so I love this chart in that way. When you have a planet conjunct Pluto and you have nothing in Pluto, and it's especially when it's Venus, this is so Scorpio. I mean, it is going to just be the first thing you feel in that person. I mean, do you not feel like when you look at her, she knows exactly what you're thinking?
You know what, Kristin, when you said that, like that really, yes, you are so spot on with that. I mean, because yes, she has such a Scorpio vibe, and I never really looked at it that way. So thanks for pointing that out. That's really interesting.
I mean, she's Scorpio and Aquarius to the core. Then I can see the Pisces, her eyes are so Pisces. And of course, the Sag part of her is just being unapologetically who she is. And she is so out there in every way. She's a walking billboard for being who you are and being true to yourself. And even at that, with her Mercury and Capricorn and Rob, that was so cool what you shared about her being interviewed with the same questions every year, and then going back to her past and saying, that's a lie, that's a lie. It is about being impeccably honest with yourself. And so,
Kristin, you also mentioned about past lifetimes where the suicide signature. That's why if you look at her early childhood and the family she's come into, it's very likely with her Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, the family she's come into, she's been with them before.
Absolutely.
They could actually be her soul family, because the soul needed that, that kind of foundation and security to feel I won't need to end my life
Yeah.
in the next
absolutely.
lifetime. So that beginnings was going to be very essential for the soul, and she's planned this lifetime in an empowering way. And yeah, I really do feel this is just a start for her to be like, right,
Mhm.
going forward.
So for
Well-
those, I just wanted to share the signature for this driving into the ocean to with this guy in this video, and basically taking their lives in this way. And that's so look at the Mars and Pisces in the 12th house, squaring Saturn, retrograde in Gemini in the 3rd. She's driving a car into the ocean. I mean, come on, it doesn't get more graphic than that.
No.
And there's many other places you can see this here, but she has obviously Uranus is in Aquarius in the 12th house, and her moon is in Aquarius with Neptune. There it is again, that little combination. So
Well, and I don't think we ever really came out and kind of agreed on the evolutionary
we
state,
didn't. Oh, we
which
did. We
I
talked
think
about
we've
it.
all kind of agreed is first stage individuated. And so these symbols obviously would reinforce that process.
Very, very close to the second stage though, because the second stage individuated is like, they literally can feel like a recluse or like just an alien to the nth degree, right? So she's probably straddling the second stage individuated. But I mean, she's so out there, second stage individuated, don't want it to do with anything out there in the world. So obviously she's still well in the first, but she's embracing that second stage full-heartedly.
Well, and I mean, one thing that I think about is, she did that documentary that was on Apple TV or whatever, and God, remind me what I'm talking about.
Oh, the stage of evolution and stage of evolution.
Individuation. Oh my God, I lost it again. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going wrong.
The moon is squaring Neptune and Pisces.
Dang it. It was important too.
But it is about how are we able to recognize someone's stage of evolution. And the reason why you can feel there's such a radical vibration to her nature that it's really, she's really pulling from that second stage. And in a way I feel like in this video where they're literally driving into the ocean, and you think about the soul ultimately wanting to return back to the sea, to that place that is so peaceful, so non-judging, so unconditionally freeing, that this is a life where I feel like she's just going to go out with a bang. And her next life, I can see her never wanting to have anything to do with the public. She's probably going to get her belly full, so full of it with her North Node in Gemini in the 4th, so full of it, that she's just going to be diving into that second stage, and just maybe she'll be on another planet. Who knows? But that's how I feel about this particular soul.
Well,
Yeah.
and I mean, I do want to just mention one thing. In the second stage individuated, this is frankly a stage of evolution that, like, it's kind of scary, right? Because a lot of people who go through that stage have problematic circumstances, just, given the need to liberate and just the intensity of the phase. But, doing the work that she is doing in individuating and really putting out her ideas and challenging the status quos, I think is, and being raised in a way where she's exploring her own ideas and she has permission to do that. I think that's going to really help when she, moves fully into that second stage individuated. So it may not be so maybe angry,
Right. And so, a lot is healing, trying to heal in this life. And part of our healing is just being able to be honest. I think when we can be honest, and this is healing her every time she gets interviewed and she can speak more of the truth. But a little secret to all of you that are doing evolutionary astrology and talking to people about their charts, nobody that's in the second stage individuated state is going to be coming to any of us for a reading. Right, that's how you know that they're in the second stage individuated. They're not going to be coming to us for counsel, most likely. And they really can be so on the edge, on their own, And they might align with someone who's as feeling as alienated as they are, but it is a very complex, challenging stage for sure.
Yeah, well, and it's because they're full of their individuality, right?
Right. But they don't want to conform to anything, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So they won't be coming to us for guidance. But eventually they realize, wow, I have so much to give the world. And so when they enter the third stage individuated, they've got their own unique vibe going on. They really, their own ingenuity. They know how to express themselves more. They're ready for it. So yeah. All right. Anything else, guys?
Right. Well, it's almost like part of that is wanting to keep that individuality intact, and a part of perhaps a defense mechanism is to say, nope, I'm not going to interact at all, so that when I come back, I know that I'm consolidated. That's Taurus, but I know that I'm able to be in the world and be myself. That's that third stage individuated. So perhaps part of that second stage, just as a thought, is really accessing that Teo or diamond nature in a way to where you can come back out. I mean, with a chart like this, I wouldn't be surprised if she would say, if you don't give me the freedom to be honest, I won't speak a word. I can really see her doing that, really being like, you don't give me that space, you give me any conflict, or try and get in that space with me where you tell me I can't be honest, and watch out. You won't be hearing from me at all. So in terms of coming back out in that third stage, but right, so it's almost like you just have to allow that soul to become their own authority and then go from there. But yeah, definitely holds a lot of power around the freedom to be honest, and no ifs, ands, or buts that's what's going to happen.
That's exactly what she did with Oscar de la Renta.
I love that.
Like,
I love that.
I will work with you if you don't use fur. Simple. And he's done it. So she had the I will use the word balls to just be like, well, this is who I am.
So let me look at how her choices, her words helped somebody of that status evolve, and to consider nature and to consider the natural world. Well, a 19-year-old girl, how old is Oscar de la Renta? I mean, she's a 19-year-old soul, but she's, a lot older soul than Oscar de la Renta.
Yes.
And that's why being natural is really just one of those intangible qualities that people can develop. And I think it really develops in Sag.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. That was so good. Just loved it. Love this fingerprint. All right. Well, let's move on to the movie of the month, Deva.
Yeah, I was feeling that a good pick for Sag would be Patch Adams. It's for my opinion, it's a real Scorpio moving to Sag, because it really speaks to the healing power of laughter and the healing power of medicine in general in its natural form, which is a type of soul humor or a type of soul levity. And his story in terms of at first why he became a doctor, which to me is really inspiring. It wasn't for the bells and whistles, it wasn't for the paycheck, it wasn't for the prestige. And I love, that's my ultimate favorite part, is how he pokes fun at the prestige that doctors are supposed to have. And it really came born from his own battle with depression and almost taking his life, and then laughter literally saved his life when he was able to laugh again, when he was able to find the opportunity to grow and heal and so on. And he became a doctor for those purposes. And so his interfacement with the doctors became really humorous, because he came in pretty much just wanting, in my estimations, to help other people heal through a type of soul levity coming from Scorpio. And one of my favorite exchanges that really shows that is that he was a roommate with someone who studied all the time, wanted to get those straight A's, could just, in his own estimations, the dialogue, he came up to Patch and he said, you know, I can tell how much you study and don't study. He became so threatened. And he said, and I can guarantee you that I can outdiagnose any doctor in this hospital, but I have to tell you one thing. I can't make somebody want to live. I cannot take Miss Williams in room 3 and make her want to take her medicine. Said, so I'm pretty much on my hands and knees and I'm asking you for help, Patch. How do you make somebody want to live? How do you make somebody want to take their medicine? And he says, I know what you do. You find out what their biggest hope in the whole wide world is. And you go fulfill that for him. So he goes into room 3 and he says, what's your secret wish? She says, I really want to be in a big tub of noodles. I know it sounds so silly, ever since I was a little girl. Okay, done. He finds her a big tub of noodles and she goes swimming. He says, will you take your medicine? She said, I'll happily take my medicine, Patch.
That's awesome.
And so it's just this total Sag nature around how to approach healing and medicine, and the power of humor, the power of letting your soul feel the opportunities rather than the pain, or rather than the loss, or whatever it is that you've had to been through. And very inspiring in the sense that especially in terms of the practice of medicine, from which my understanding is Sag, is that it goes way beyond just the prescriptions or diagnosing. It really goes to the ultimate levity of the soul. So I felt that he would be a great one for Sag in terms of the power of laughter, and how that can create a true soul healing in the end.
No, I remember when your dad was teaching the schools, Deva, and everybody knew he had a bunch of things in Sagittarius, and he used to joke around that. He used to say, if I wasn't a Sag, I'd be dead by now.
Yeah.
Because of the intensity of the life that he had lived up to that point, and the war that he was in, and all sorts of personal things that he had gone through. And it's true, but he also said that, you know, just that gallus humor that just kept him alive within it all. The Sagittarius energy in anyone's chart can make them feel like the serendipitous energy, right place, right time, the near miss, like a guardian angel element. If you've got a Jupiter in the 12th, you might feel that. Just feeling like there's a presence protecting you. Don't run that red light because someone's coming barreling down the other direction. But also the humor piece is just such a huge part of it, to just be able to laugh at yourself.
Right.
I mean, I even was reading in The Guardian today, there's an article on Billie Eilish today, and she actually overslept the announcement of these Grammy nominations. She was up watching Fleabag for the 3rd time. Like really late. What the heck? I've never seen that movie. I'll have to look into that. But she's just like kind of self-deprecating, and she's also just extremely funny. She doesn't make, like, it's like she doesn't make too much of it all. I think she was almost so embarrassed when she first got those Grammys. And one thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention was she was dressed in this very frumpy clothing, and had gone up on stage to perform, and I was like, what is she wearing? I mean, to 15, 16, and at the time she said she doesn't want people looking at her body. She doesn't want to become some like sex symbol. I mean, she has Lilith in the 8th house, right? But I think that was one of her lies that she talks about, because then I read something later that said she just really had this negative body image, which is why she just put all these big baggy clothes on. And so that was the one, I just realized that today. But I just love this article, and this giant article that comes out in The Guardian today, just when we're doing this show, and she's been our chosen fingerprint. I mean, it's just perfect. But
well, and she has chosen to use that circumstances, just, you know, like to ask the question, why do people care so much about body? Like,
right.
Who cares about my body shape? Like, she's using it as a question. She's fascinated by it. And so
That's true, but she also admitted that she cared about how her own body looked.
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
why she was covering it up. So then the next question becomes, why did you come in with all this talent and capacity and ability? And then why did you come in with these genetics, you know? And at least at that age, she may not always have that body. If she's doing certain things to try and, you know, change the body. I mean, natural things, but, and so I think that's another question. And I think one of the answers to that is that, just like Gaga, she's trying to reach all the people that don't feel good about who they are. She is trying to reach all the people that don't feel like they fit in or are good enough or pretty enough or skinny enough. And I think so she wants to reach all of those people as well. So that, you know, that is part of her message. That is the why that she will come to understand. And I think for the first time, Rob, when she did dye her hair blonde, and she's like wearing makeup in these pictures, and there's certain, wow, you're like, whoa. I mean, you can tell she's only 19. You can tell that her look is changing. And it will evolve, I'm sure, into something very different than what happened in her teenage years, you know.
She appears a lot more confident.
Yes, and there was just
I
a
would say.
shine about her. And it's so true, like how you feel inside yourself is, you know, it comes out your eyes, kind of, it emanates from your skin. It just comes out like that. And so even the most, you know, textbook beautiful person could look really ugly, you know, because of what's going on inside of them. So yeah, she's starting to recover a confidence and a natural confidence and just a natural beauty, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, so I kind of derailed off the Patch Adams. I love that movie too, though, Deva. It is a brilliant movie, and it is tragic as much as it is hysterical and comical. It's got everything. So if you haven't seen that, check it out. All right, well, let's move to our inspiring close. And I want to close with one of my favorite quotes by Dane Rudhyar, the famous astrologer. When you don't follow your nature, there is a hole in the universe where you were supposed to be. So I just want to encourage everybody to be natural and to really follow what intuitively feels best. And that hole will slowly but surely, and maybe swiftly during the eclipse, become whole and thus holy. Thanks you all for joining me in this wonderful panel. I enjoyed it so much. And the new EA book, which came out this past year, March 2021. Here's a list of our authors, and we miss you, Linda. And we honor you every time we show up here. So thank you, Rob and Stacie and Deva. And if you are interested in learning more about evolutionary astrology, schoolof-evolutionaryastrology.com, gift yourself these teachings. You will forever be grateful you did. Namaste.